Despite assurances back during the 2016 presidential campaign, Donald Trump, he had said at the time that he would be the best president ever for the LGBTQ community. And since then, he has repeatedly targeted them in a number of different areas, in particular the transgender community. But now they have a new policy, the Department of Labor, that is going to allow discrimination against members of the community in an all new way, effectively allowing them to even be fired based on the individual religious beliefs of federal workers. And joining us now to break down this most recent assault against the LGBT community is Zeke Stokes, Chief Programs Officer at GLAAD. Zeke, welcome back to the Damage Report.
Thank you for having me today, John. I really appreciate it.
I wish we could be talking about something more positive, but unfortunately this is the hand that we've been dealt. So tell me about this new policy.
Well, it would allow anyone who contracts with the federal government to discriminate against LGBTQ workers on the basis of so-called religious liberty. We know that about a quarter of the workforce in this country actually is employed by someone who is a federal contractor. So this would have a devastating consequence for those employees. You know, you can already be fired for being LGBTQ in more than half the states because we don't have federal protections for LGBTQ people. But this would extend that to all 50 states and allow any company that employs, that is federally contracted to discriminate against LGBTQ people.
And so, I mean, this is happening at the same time over the same 5-year period where there's, I mean, we had the legalization of gay marriage. Like in certain areas, we were moving in the right direction, but this is pretty quickly moving in the opposite. And so, just then 5 years ago, we had the Hobby Lobby ruling, and they're already leaping past that. I guess I'm just curious from your personal experience, like had you even feared a few years back that they could have so much momentum on their side in increasing official recognized discrimination?
This is the most anti-LGBTQ administration in our lifetimes. We've had administrations in the White House that stalled our progress. We even saw George W. Bush supporting a federal amendment to the Constitution to prohibit gay marriage. But even those who were observers at the time knew that was just sort of a primary play to his base to shore up his support going into re-election. And no one in that administration had any intention of really following that through. What we see now with this Trump administration is more than 125 discrete attacks on our community in rhetoric and record. The census, trans-military service, opposing the Equality Act, this Department of Labor ruling, bringing pride flags down to the embassies. This is an all-out assault on our community.
Wow, I actually had forgotten about the pride flags. Yeah, so I mean, it really spans the gamut from official policy, like life-altering policy, down to the most petty sort of attacks against the community. I'm curious, I actually don't know the statistics. In terms of support for Donald Trump inside of the community, do we have any idea of how much support he has and how that might be changing as this continues, as you say, 125 different assaults?
You know, I haven't seen any numbers that break down credibly how many LGBTQ people support Donald Trump. You have to believe just from observation that it's very few and far between. We do know, though, that more than 80% of Americans support LGBTQ equality. They believe that we should be treated as equal citizens no matter where we live, no matter who we love, no matter how we identify. And so what we see while the media, the mainstream media chases stories about Greenland and whether or not we can nuke hurricanes, we actually see a really, really dangerous pattern behind the scenes in this administration for all marginalized communities that's not really getting the attention it deserves from the media, and the public is not being educated about what's really happening behind the scenes to our communities.
So for this most recent change to the policy, which is in a 30-day public comment period, what has their argument been for why the change should be made? How is the Trump administration communicating about it?
They're arguing that anyone who holds, quote, deeply held religious beliefs should be able to make decisions about discrimination based on those beliefs. What we know, though, is that this really isn't about religious liberty or freedom for these federal contractors. It really doesn't even represent a few well-meaning people who really hold these beliefs and want to be able to practice their religious beliefs honorably. We already know that that's enshrined in the Constitution. There is no threat to religious liberty. This is a few people inside this administration and far-right folks who support this administration who want to use religion as a weapon to discriminate discriminate. That is all this is. That's all it has ever been. And that's what this argument is about. It's not about cakes. It's not about religious liberty. It's about a license to discriminate against LGBTQ people. They've lost the battle on so many fronts, and this is their last stand.
You're absolutely right, Zeke. And what can we do? How do we fight this?
Well, it's hard to say in this political climate, but I will say the resistance is working. We saw LGBTQ people turn out in droves for the midterm elections. We know that LGBTQ people made the margin of difference in a lot of races for the House and locally across the country. We have to get out. We have to get registered to vote. We have to prepare for 2020. We have to find candidates that believe what we believe and will move the ball forward on equality. There are a lot of good people running for president, and I urge LGBTQ people to start paying attention, get off the sidelines, and get involved. 2020 is how we turn this around.
Zeke Stokes, Chief Programs Officer for GLAAD, thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you, John.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.